Have you ever believed that by avoiding arguments and conflicts, you could achieve inner peace and true freedom? Have you ever been convinced that by smiling at others and staying silent in the face of injustice, you could secure stability and harmony, thus gaining an advantageous position on life's chessboard?
Imagine you meticulously weave a net called peace. Each thread a suppressed true thought, every concession a swallowed grievance, every smile perhaps hiding a hint of discontent. You walk cautiously on this net, terrified that any tension might tear it, revealing the bottomless chasm beneath. You've learned to compromise, to conform, to use a facade of harmony to ward off uncomfortable truths.
You avoid sharp conversations, steer clear of topics that might touch sensitive nerves, and even deep down you harbor an inexplicable fear and aversion to the word conflict itself. This fear acts like an invisible wall, separating you from the real world, your true self, and authentic relationships. Does this avoidance of conflict, without your knowledge, cause you to lose something far more valuable?
Have you found that while you strive to maintain superficial calm, the inner turmoil never truly ceases? Does that long-suppressed dissatisfaction, that unexpressed longing quietly ferment in the depths of your soul, eventually brewing into a bitter wine? Have you ever felt that to avoid a brief argument you paid with long-term self-exhaustion, even sacrificing your most authentic voice?
Do you realize that your desire for freedom and your fear of conflict precisely constitute the core paradox of your life? You long to soar, yet you cling desperately to the reins of harmony. Terrified that any tremor will send you plummeting, you believe yourself to be free, yet you find yourself trapped in the cage of comfort you built with your own hands, unable to move.
This fear does not originate from external threats, but from your inherent resistance to loss of control, from your subconscious, primal anxiety of rejection and isolation. It is a deep, almost genetically coded, collective unconscious, whispering, conform, integrate, and you shall be safe.
However, Nietzsche, that unyielding anatomist of the soul, would mercilessly tear away this veneer of warmth, telling you a cruel and profound truth. If you truly desire freedom, then you must stop fearing conflict. Because true freedom is born precisely at the moment you dare to face conflict, even actively seek it. Why are we so afraid of conflict? This is no accident. It is deeply rooted in human psychology and social structures.
From childhood, we are taught to be obedient, well-behaved, sensible, to avoid causing trouble, and to steer clear of disagreements with others. Society's concept of harmony is often overinterpreted as no differing opinions, no heated debates, no direct confrontation. So you were indoctrinated from a young age that conflict is destructive, the end of friendships, the breaking of relationships. This notion is ingrained in your bones, forming a powerful cognitive bias that equates conflict with danger, causing your brain to instinctively activate defense mechanisms, prompting you to evade, yield, and placate. Behind this lies humanity's primal fear of exclusion. In ancient times, being ostracized from the tribe meant death.
This survival instinct has evolved into a strong aversion to being disliked by others or being isolated from the group. You fear that conflict will lead to the breakdown of relationships and that you will lose others' approval and support as a result. This craving for external validation makes you willing to wear a mask of conformity, suppressing your true self to become one of the herd. As Nietzsche pointed out, this is a manifestation of herd morality, a a choice to surrender individual will and uniqueness for the sake of security and comfort. You dare not speak with a distinct voice, dare not express views contrary to the mainstream, because you fear becoming the one looked at differently, the outcast, who might be abandoned by the group. This fear also stems from a deep-seated anxiety of loss of control.
Conflict often implies uncertainty of outcome, meaning you might not be able to predict others' reactions or control the direction of events. You fear that once conflict erupts, the situation will spiral out of control, beyond your expectations and management. This aversion to loss of control leads you to prefer making concessions, enduring humiliation, rather than risking losing control to fight for what you deserve and desire.
You view inner suppression as a controllable pain, while seeing the eruption of conflict as an uncontrollable disaster. Your brain is trained to weigh pros and cons, ultimately always leaning towards the option that seems least risky and most conducive to maintaining the status quo, even if it means sacrificing a part of your true self.
Have you ever been trapped in such a mental cage, where your inner self is tempestuous, yet your surface remains calm, simply for fear of that feeling of losing control? The conflicts you avoid never truly disappear. They are merely pushed into the abyss of your subconscious, where they take root and grow, becoming more twisted and hidden. You believe you have maintained peace, but in reality you are fighting a prolonged war with an invisible enemy. This enemy is your suppressed true self. The cost of this suppression is immense. Firstly, your true feelings and needs are long ignored, leading to an accumulation of resentment and dissatisfaction like toxins. These toxins do not simply vanish. They may erupt in forms of passive aggression, indifference, persistent depression, or even physical illness. You may find yourself growing increasingly cynical, distrustful of others, because you cannot trust an environment where you cannot express your authentic self. Secondly, your authentic relationships also become fragile and superficial as a result. True intimacy is built on honesty and frankness, including the ability to withstand and navigate conflict. When you always avoid conflict, you are effectively avoiding genuine connection. What you establish between yourself and others is a facade of peaceful coexistence, rather than deep understanding and acceptance. You cannot engage in meaningful, profound communication because you are afraid of touching any truth that might cause discomfort. These relationships are like thin ice, seemingly smooth but in fact shattered at the slightest touch. You might have many friends around you, but you feel an unprecedented loneliness inside, because no one truly knows you, and no one has the opportunity to truly know you. Even more terrifying, this avoidance of conflict will ultimately lead you to lose yourself. You live for too long within the expectations of others and the norms of society. Your boundaries become blurred, your will becomes wavering. You no longer know what you truly want, what you truly believe, or who you truly are. Your life becomes a bland journey with no highs and no lows. You are like a rudderless ship, drifting with the current, allowing external forces to push you in any direction. What you give up is not just the victory of a single argument, but your very sense of existence and vitality as an independent individual. You live an unlived life, filled with what-ifs and if-onlys. Nietzsche would tell you that this is spiritual slavery, a bondage more terrifying than any physical prison. If you do not awaken, you will sink deeper, eventually becoming an empty puppet, completely losing your autonomy and creativity as a living individual. Your silence is the cruelest betrayal of your own soul. However, Nietzsche's philosophy is not meant to plunge you into despair.
On the contrary, he points you to a path towards true freedom and power, which is to view conflict as a crucible for creation. You must fundamentally overturn your ingrained perception of conflict. Conflict is not solely a form of destruction. It is, more importantly, a necessary condition for generation and transformation. Just as muscles grow through tearing, seeds sprout through breaking their shells, and a phoenix is reborn in flames, your mind and will can only become more resilient, clear, and powerful after experiencing the friction and collision of conflict. Conflict is the asterisk test of truth. When you dare to express your true thoughts and feelings in conflict, you are testing the boundaries of your relationships and the strength of your beliefs. This authentic clash helps you and others identify hidden contradictions, clarify misunderstandings, and ultimately build relationships on a more solid, honest foundation. It forces you to face reality, rather than living in the illusion of self-deception. You no longer need to guess others' thoughts, nor do you need to suppress your own voice, because truth, however jarring, is always more powerful than false harmony. Conflict is also a catalyst for self-overcoming. Each time you dare to stand up, defend your beliefs, and set your boundaries, you are engaging in what Nietzsche called self-overcoming. You overcome fear, overcome inertia, and overcome the constraints imposed by society. You are no longer a passive object, but an active agent. This active choice and participation make you more complete and authentic with each conflict. The resistances that once made you feel powerless are under your direct confrontation and conquest, transformed into an accumulation of your inner strength. You will find that your will, like steel forged through countless trials, becomes sharper with every blow. Those who have truly lived well throughout history were, without exception, warriors who dared to embrace conflict. Whether it was thinkers challenging old ideas, artists subverting aesthetic norms, or revolutionaries resisting social injustice, they all proved, through their actions, no conflict, no progress, no confrontation, no rebirth. You are not to blindly create conflict, but to learn to selectively, consciously, and purposefully engage in conflicts that can promote your and others' growth, reveal truth, and defend your core values. This choice itself is an immense freedom, a power to reclaim agency over your life. Conflict is no longer a monstrous beast, but your ferry to the shore of freedom, your anvil for self-forging. The ultimate insight lies in your profound understanding that true freedom is not living in an ideal world without conflict, but possessing the ability and willingness to coexist with conflict and grow within it. Freedom is not the absence of conflict, but your attitude towards it, no longer viewing it as a threat, but as an indispensable part of life's pulse, a primal friction that ignites your vital energy. When your mind is strong enough to embrace this friction, you are truly free. Imagine you are no longer a prisoner hiding in the shadows, but a dancer who dares to dance in the storm. The storm does not disappear, but you no longer fear it. You even feel life's grandeur and your own resilience in its roar.
This power is what Nietzsche called great health, the ability to bear and transform suffering, a will to affirm everything in life. You no longer need external harmony to define your existence, because your inner harmony is born from your integration of all chaos and tension. This freedom allows you to live your authentic self completely and unreservedly. You dare to say no, to set clear boundaries, to express your deepest thoughts, even if it means causing discomfort or misunderstanding in others. You no longer sacrifice yourself to please others. Your actions are no longer driven by fear, but guided by your deepest will and values. Your relationships will consequently become more genuine and profound, as they are built on truth rather than pretense. Relationships that cannot withstand your authentic conflict will naturally dissipate, while those that can navigate conflict with you will become even more indomitable. So, cast aside those old fears about conflict. Confront the truths you once avoided. Express the authenticity you once suppressed. Let every conflict become an opportunity for self-sculpting, a furnace for your growing power. In conflict, you will reclaim your lost voice, reshape your blurred boundaries, and ignite your inner fire. You'll discover that conflict, which once terrified you, will ultimately become the essential path to your most authentic, most free, most powerful self. For life itself is an unending conflict and transcendence, and you are the sole author of this magnificent epic. Live your uncompromising truth, embrace your burning will, and become the free soul who dares to dance in the storm.